Welcome to the Astrology Show with your host, Kelli Fox. Each week, Kelli will give you access to the current transits that are a valuable tool, which provide astrological information to help unlock the potential each of us has through our sun sign. Understanding the current planetary influences each week can help steer us in the right direction to make better informed choices. Sometimes, events in your life may seem completely random, but there is a pattern to the order of these events, one set in motion in part by you, and in part by the planets and stars in the sky and their influence on your life here on Earth. So if you're wondering what's going to happen in your week ahead, if you're going to get that promotion, move to a new city, or fall in love, tune in to the Astrology Show for guidance. It can help you anticipate problems before they occur, give you tools to cope with changes, and help you look forward to the wonderful days ahead. Kelli Fox is a professional astrologer and internet pioneer who launched astrology.com, one of the first and most successful astrology websites. Today, her passion lies with her new site, theastrologer.com, where she brings a modern-day approach to an ancient wisdom. Please join Kelli each week to learn more about how the planets can align for you.
Hi there, and welcome to the Astrology Show. I'm your host and astrologer, Kelli Fox. Can you believe that we are nearly into February? It is so surprising how quickly this year has gone by already. So we are towards the end of January, and on Wednesday it will be February 1st. That is mind-boggling. So in this show, I want to talk about, of course, the planets this week, but I also want to talk about what's ahead in February and what we can be expecting during the eclipse month. It just seems like yesterday that I was talking about the last set of eclipses, which happened in September, and now I'm talking about eclipses again, which are happening in February. So I want to cover the headlines for February, the astro headlines and what we can expect. And a couple of those headlines are happening this week. So we have two major headlines for February happening the first week of February. So February will start off with a bang. So it will be a month to remember. So the first headline of the week and month is Venus, love planet Venus, moving into Aries on Friday, where it will be until April 2nd. It turns retrograde on March 4th and then finally direct on April 15th. So that means that it's in Aries, but then it moves backwards through Aries and then into Pisces. Also this week and this month, the other astro headline we have is Jupiter, the planet of luck and good fortune, turning retrograde in Libra. So since the beginning of January through February 5th, we have not had any retrograde planets, which is highly unusual. And to break that pattern, Jupiter will be turning retrograde on Sunday in this part of the world. If you're in another part of the world, it will be Monday. But Jupiter will be turning retrograde, and I'll cover that later in the show and what that means. So, of course, the other headlines for February, we will be in eclipse month, and the first eclipse is a lunar eclipse on February 10th, and that occurs in Leo. So this is an intense time anyway when there's eclipse season for everybody, but particularly for the fixed signs and anybody that has any planets in fixed signs, February will be an intense time. And it doesn't mean bad, it just means intense and memorable. And then the second eclipse we have in February is the solar eclipse in Pisces. So that's good news for the water signs or anybody that has any planets in water signs, and that's Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. It's a time for new beginnings. So if you're looking to start something new, if you can wait until the end of February, around the 26th, when the solar eclipse occurs in Pisces, it's a great time to start something new that will be long-lasting. But the word here is you can't start something new until you wrap up something old. So start completing anything that's outstanding this coming month, and then you can move forward into the next stage. Oh, and with the lunar eclipse occurring in Leo, and I said it's an intense time for the fixed signs. The fixed signs are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. And then, of course, we have our other set of eclipses for 2017 in August, also in fixed signs. So the fixed signs, it's a time for transformation and change for everybody, because 2017 is the number one year according to numerologists. So it means it's the start of a brand new cycle. And the fixed signs have a double dose of newness and new beginnings. So if you're looking to make any changes in your life, this is the time to do it. This is the month to do it. And, of course, we've just had the Chinese New Year and the year of the rooster. And I don't know much about Chinese astrology, but it's a fire rooster. And I know that the characteristics of rooster people are flamboyant, and they like routine and very good with detail. So that's all good news. Anyway, so back to what's going on with the headlines in this week. As I said, that we have Venus, love planet Venus, moving into Aries. We also have Mars and Uranus in Aries. So if you feel yourself energized at this time, that's because we have these planets in Aries, and Aries is definitely a mover and a shaker. It's the first sign of the zodiac. It's a fire sign. It's a cardinal sign. It gets things going. So if you're an Aries, or you know any Aries, have Aries in your life, you know these people are movers and shakers and pioneers and leaders. And if you want to know your planetary placements, you can go to my website, theastrologer.com, go up to the menu bar, click astrology, you'll see chart wheel, and then you can get yourself a free chart wheel, and you can see where all your planets were in which sign at the time you were born. That's really important, because astrology is a lot more than just a sun sign, although it's a great place to start. It incorporates all the planets in all the signs at the time you were born, and then how those planets interact with each other, and then, of course, how your planets interact with someone else's planets determines your compatibility and so on. And also with regards to transits or forecasting, it's where the planets are at any given time, say today, and how they're interacting with your planets at the time you were born, and that's called a natal chart. So you can find out about your natal chart and what planets are where at the time you were born by getting a free chart wheel. So this month meaning February, this week, we have love planet Venus moving into Aries, the first sign of the zodiac. It joins Mars and it will join Uranus, both in Aries as well. It will also be forming challenging aspects to Pluto, so there's going to be some intensity this month and next around relationships, and particularly when Venus turns retrograde. It turns retrograde in Aries next month on the 4th of March, and that means that perhaps relationships from the past will come about or if you are experiencing problems in your relationship, it's the time for making up or breaking up. So just keep that in mind with your current relationship, or if you're looking for a new relationship. It's not a time to start a relationship, or definitely not to get married or engaged when Venus is retrograde, and that is March 4th through April 15th, when Venus will be moving backwards through Aries and then Pisces. So at the moment, or as of Friday, Venus will be moving into Aries. It's currently in Pisces and it's wrapping up the cycle. Venus is the planet of love and socializing, and it likes being in Pisces. So the planets do have their favorite signs, and they have signs that they rule. And when Venus moves into Aries on Friday, it's not very comfortable there. It's not a great fit. Aries is aligned with Mars. So Mars is currently in Aries. That's a great placement for this planet and sign. But when Venus is in Aries, it's a little bit of a conflicting energies going on. So Venus in Aries, and of course, depending on how this influence affects you and your natal chart, many of us, particularly the fire signs, and that's Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, could find our love life rather exciting. It's like there's plenty of new opportunities coming about. Many of us will be on the go. We might even find ourselves being bolder than usual, maybe taking risks and acting on our ardent impulses. Romance at this time, when Venus is in Aries, can be pretty steamy, and some of us might be open to experimentation. But we have to be careful about not getting too carried away by our passions, and be sure to take care of ourselves and not be too reckless. So that's when Venus is in Aries. We're going to take a short break. After the break, I will continue with this week's and February's planets, so stay tuned.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Have you been searching for a perspective beyond the mainstream? Check it out. Join your hosts Cielito Pascual and Diana Gold Holland on Share International Radio for thought-provoking views behind the news, Sundays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio. You can also find us at shareontheairradio.org. This may be the message of hope you've been waiting for.
Hi, this is John Ondrasik of Five for Fighting, here for RAD, the entertainment industry's voice for road safety. You know, style is a personal thing, and your lifestyle is your business. But if you take it on the road, it becomes everybody's business. So please, plan ahead, designate before you celebrate. Friends, don't let friends drive drunk.
A public service announcement brought to you by RAD, the National Association of Broadcasters, and the Ad Council.
Hi there, welcome back to the Astrology Show. I'm your host and astrologer, Kelli Fox, talking about the planets this week as well as February's planets. And we've got two influences, two of February's astro headlines happening this week. As soon as we start February, we've got stuff going on. Of course, we always have stuff going on, sometimes more so than other times. So February starts off with a bang. It will be an intense month. We have the eclipses, the lunar eclipse on the 10th, the solar eclipse on the 26th. February will be a time to remember. But first, the first astro headline is Venus moving into Aries. Now, this is going to be an extra long cycle for Venus because it turns retrograde. It turns retrograde in March, on March 4th. Venus will be retrograde, and it moves back through Aries and then into Pisces. It turns direct on April 15th. Then it moves back into Aries, and then it continues through Aries through June 6th. So this Friday is going to be the start of an extra long Venus cycle. Now, Venus is the romantic planet of love, and Venus is all about pleasure, about bringing people together and uniting them in a harmonious way. So Venus doesn't only rule love and dating, but also friendships, partnerships, and any sort of social gathering. Many of us might find ourselves very busy with social engagements, particularly for the fire signs, and I say that because Venus is moving into Aries. It's a fire sign. The other two fire signs are Leo and Sagittarius, and it also applies to anybody that has any planets in fire signs, which is many people, most of us probably. Venus also rules finances, and that means by which you treat yourself and your friends, say to a wonderful dinner or romantic gift of flowers or chocolate. So that's what Venus is all about. And so where Venus lies in your astrological chart influences how you approach any kind of partnership. So again, that's romantic, business, friendship. So it sort of tells us or tells you if you're comfortable with intimacy or just a little bit leery of getting too close and dependent. Do you live for love, or are you just fine with being on your own? When it comes to friendship and business, how do you work with other people? Do you avoid trouble by letting the other person lead? Or do you tend to assert your vision regardless of what the other person wants? That sort of sounds like Venus in Aries, doesn't it? So Venus in Aries, Aries is the leader and the pioneer. But whichever it is, that's what tells you, gives you some insight. Whatever sign Venus is in at the time you were born, that will give you insight into your relationships. Now, if you don't know your Venus sign, be sure to get a free chart wheel on my website, theastrologer.com, menu bar, astrology, and then under there it says chart wheel. It's really important to know where your planets are to get a really good understanding of your temperament and characteristics, and particularly with Venus in Aries, moving into Aries in this extra long cycle, how is that going to affect you? Also with Venus, as I said, money is within this planet's realm. It will show you if you're good with money, cautious, conservative, only taking calculated, well thought out risks. With Venus, it will also show you if you tend to be more indulgent, less prudent. Perhaps you're a big spender, believing that more is better and pleasure is priceless. It's definitely part of Venus's realm. Now, Venus, as I said before, the planets have their favorite signs and their least favorite signs. Taurus and Libra are Venus's favorite signs. Venus also likes Pisces, where it currently is. So if you're a Taurus or a Libra, you should pay attention to the ingresses. That means when a planet changes sign, you should pay attention to your ruling planet when it changes sign or it changes direction, like it's going to be moving retrograde March 4th. Now, with Venus moving into Aries on Friday, this is good news if you are single, because this is an ideal transit for initiating new relationships, and you've got the confidence to go after what you want. Venus in Aries definitely gives us all a boost with confidence in the love department. But of course, with Venus in Aries, you might want to change your mind from moment to moment. The influence of Aries is so quick thinking and fast moving, just jumping from one thing to the next. So it could be the hunt that might be what thrills us most now, while the everyday work of relationship could feel a little stifling for others. And if you are in a partnership, breaking up familiar routines with an infusion of novelty. In other words, surprise your sweetie by taking him or her on an unexpected outing, trying a new outfit, or an innovative approach to romance. That's another way to make good use of this energy when Venus is in Aries. Some of us might even want to assert our independence now, because Aries is a very independent sign. First sign of the zodiac, it's a pioneer, it's a leader, and Aries is fearless and very courageous. So this is a good time to get in touch with your own needs and desires, separate from your partner. And when Venus is in Aries, being clingy is definitely a turn-off. So you should allow yourself some space. That's a great use of this energy, giving yourself some space, not being too dependent on your partner, and being independent, seeking independence, knowing yourself. That's a good use of this transit. Also, just a word of caution with Venus in Aries, be aware of the tendency towards impulse spending under this transit. Some of us will want what we want when we want it. So patience and prudence will be in order when Venus is in Aries. Now, as I said, Venus is moving retrograde, and that is from March 4th through April 15th. Venus will be retrograde in Aries, and then it moves back through Pisces. So when Venus is retrograde in Aries, many of us might find that our love life could be up and down and round and around and all over the place. As I said, Aries changes its mind very quickly, running hot and cold a lot. So when Venus comes together with Aries, it gives it quite an ardent edge, sort of inspiring bold advances, as many of us will follow our passionate urges. But when Venus enters this retrograde motion on March 4th, the bold, passionate energy of Aries is suddenly turned on its head. Maybe many of us won't be as daring and adventurous in love. We could be more reckless and not worrying about consequences. So that is my word of caution when Venus is retrograde in Aries. And with Venus being retrograde, it is the planet that turns retrograde the least amount of times. All the other planets are retrograde more often. Venus, it's unusual when Venus is retrograde. Oh, and that's another good reason to run your chart wheel, is to find out if you have any retrograde planets, which most of us do, and which are they. And if you do happen to have Venus retrograde, this period of Venus retrograde is definitely going to be more prominent if you have Venus retrograde natally. So feel free to run a free chart wheel on my website to find out. So with Venus retrograde, the least amount of time of all the planets, and that's once every 18 months, and it's retrograde for about 6 weeks at a time. So that amounts to about 7% of its time in its orbit around the sun. And if you compare that to Pluto, which is our outermost planet, that's retrograde about 44% of the time. That's a huge difference. Of course, there's many differences between those two planets. And it's funny that I mentioned Pluto because at some stage, and I should just check the date on this, but Venus will be forming a square to Pluto. And that looks like that's going to be happening. Let me see here. That will be happening. Oh, yes, it looks like it's going to happen early March, but then it turns retrograde just before it forms the square. So that won't be happening till a little bit later in the cycle when Venus turns direct, April 15th. And then it looks like this square occurs late in May. Let me see here, May 25th. Venus will be forming a square to Pluto, the same day as the new moon in Gemini. That'll be an interesting day, May 25th, part of this cycle of Venus and the Venus retrograde. Very interesting. So the next few months, it's going to be very interesting around relationships for all of us, and depending on how these planets do affect your chart at the time you were born. So when Venus is in retrograde, which it will be, it's going to seem like forever for some of us. As I said, it's not a great time to start a relationship when Venus is retrograde. It's also not a good time to open a bank account or purchase luxury items or get married or engaged. But it might be a good time to shop at antique stores or second-hand stores and flea markets. We're going to take a short break. After the break, I will continue with this week's planet, so stay tuned.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Spiritual, metaphysical, green living, psychic, alternative healing, life coaching. Do any of these or similar terms apply to your business or cause? If so, you are in a niche market with a very specific audience. Conscious Gate PR is the world's leading conscious public relations agency. With a global reach of over 4 million and growing, we offer comprehensive media campaigns to our targeted market. Learn more at consciousgatepr.com. Conscious marketing for conscious minds.
Join Vibe Nation radio host, international psychic medium Carrie Turcotte, as she guides her listeners to rediscover themselves by accessing the keys of knowledge that already exist within. Each week's show is divinely orchestrated to intertwine with the universal energies, allowing the listeners to go deeper within. At the end of each show, Carrie will tap into the energies of the listeners and give a message from Spirit about the upcoming week. If you really want to get to know who you truly are, join Carrie each Monday at 3 p.m. on Vibe Nation Radio.
This is a test to find out if you know it all when it comes to children. Name one of the leading killers of U.S. children age 1 to 13. What's the best way to protect children in a car crash? At what age and size should a child start using a booster seat?
Don't assume you know it all when it comes to car seats for your child. Go to safercar.gov/the-right-seat and know for sure. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hi there, welcome back to the Astrology Show. I'm your host and astrologer, Kelli Fox, talking about the planets this week, this month, this year, and Venus in Aries and Venus turning retrograde, which is unusual, and it's the planet that turns retrograde the least amount of time. And retrograde means that the planet, we say the planet's moving backwards, but technically the planets don't move backwards in their orbit around the sun. they slow down and they appear to be moving backwards from our perspective here on Earth. So that's what retrograde means, and it also means that the energy of the planet moves backwards as well. So Venus in Aries will be turning retrograde. Venus doesn't typically like Aries. It's not a sign that it's comfortable with. And then when it's retrograde, it's like a double whammy. So this will affect you depending on what's in your chart, where the planets were at the time of your birth. It could be affecting any area of your life. So if you're an Aries, Venus will be retrograding or moving backwards across your sun. So just be cautious with love and money during the retrograde period, which is March 4th through April 15th. And just before the break, I was saying, well, what is a good use of the Venus retrograde? It's not all doom and gloom, of course, but it's an opportunity for us to reevaluate what's important to us. It's a time to think about what do we actually value. And that's good timing because Jupiter, which I'm just about to talk about in a minute, will also be turning retrograde this week. So we have Venus moving into Aries in the start of a very long cycle due to the Venus retrograde, but also Jupiter is the planet of values and belief systems, as well as mind expansion and travel and luck and good fortune. That moves backwards as well, and in the sign of Libra, which is the sign of partnership. So we have a lot of emphasis on relationships over the next few months. So as I said before, when Venus is retrograde, it's a time of make or break in a relationship. It's a time to sort through problems. It's a time to stop sweeping things under the rug and to actually address things head on, which is more possible and doable when you have anything to do with Aries, which always likes to deal with things head on. So when Venus is retrograde, it's not, our judgment might be a little bit off in the relationship department, so with the retrograde, it definitely, if we start a relationship during that period, once the retrograde is over, we might be scratching our heads wondering what we were doing in this relationship in the first place. I'm sort of laughing, but, it's not funny, I guess, or is it? I don't know. With Jupiter in Libra at the same time, anything is possible, put it that way. So on that note, we are moving into February so fast. I can hardly believe it. And the big news of February are the eclipses, the lunar eclipse in Leo on February 10th and the solar eclipse in Pisces on the 26th, which, again, next week's show, I will definitely be talking about the lunar eclipse in Leo and how that will be affecting everybody. So the other headline for February is Jupiter turning retrograde in Libra. Now, this is again about relationships because Jupiter is in Libra and Libra is the sign of relationships. So Jupiter has been traveling through Libra since September, and Jupiter stays in one sign for around a year, 12 months. So it will be in Libra until October 2017. And Jupiter is commonly referred to as the planet of luck. It's also called the planet of philosophy due to its intellectually explorative nature. And so its year-long transit through diplomatic Libra expands our natural curiosity about the world along with our interest in connecting with people of different cultures and philosophies. That's because Jupiter is the planet of travel, but everything that encompasses. And I don't just mean standing in long lines at the security checkpoint. That's definitely not. Well, it's excessive, I guess, on the flip side. But Jupiter really is about understanding foreign cultures and foreign people. So the more that you can get out there and connect with others while Jupiter is in Libra, the better. Now, because it's turning retrograde, it might bring up people from the past, from foreign places. So that's an interesting thing as well with this Venus cycle of relationships from the past. If you're involved with someone from a foreign culture romantically, you just might hear from them. When I put those two energies together, you never know. So Jupiter, as I said, is a planet of luck because it brings opportunities and advantages into our life that can look like a stroke of luck. But if you look more closely, you'll find lessons much deeper than the workings of simple chance with Jupiter. It's about opportunities in certain areas, particularly relationships now because it's in Libra. But the planet's also about learning and intellectual pursuits and spirituality. So when it turns retrograde on Sunday, these issues might come to a head, but that sounds negative. These issues might arise at this time, and particularly this week when there's some change. The change of the guard is happening with Venus changing sign and Jupiter moving retrograde, and then we're starting to feel the influence of the lunar eclipse of next week. Also that Jupiter rules Sagittarius and co-rules Pisces. So if you're a Sagittarius and a Pisces, you will be feeling the effects of the Jupiter retrograde, particularly around relationships because Jupiter is in Libra. And any issues from the past will need addressing. Not a time to be sweeping things under the rug. So Jupiter will be turning retrograde from February 5th through June 9th. And the expansive energy of Jupiter will turn inward. So during this retrograde time, we might be challenged to take stock of our beliefs and our ideals. And we need to be honest with ourselves about whether the lives we're living truly match our belief system. And that's particularly important in our relationships because Jupiter is in Libra. Are we aligned with our partner around our beliefs and our values? So many of us might find ourselves reviewing our relationships, and that's both personal and professional, during this retrograde period. We might even start pondering important questions like what's been working between you and your partner and what isn't. Does this partnership match with our deeply held values? And maybe most importantly, are you bringing everything you can to the table to help make this partnership a success? Now, this is more so for anybody that's a cardinal sign or has planets in cardinal signs, and that's Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn. So some of us might have felt like we're stuck in a bad luck phase, but the honest answers to these questions that we're asking at this time, and particularly this week as Jupiter's starting to change direction, we're currently in the Jupiter stationary period. But if we ask these honest questions, we might get some honest answers that reveal that we've been the obstacle blocking our own path. And that might take a bit of time through this retrograde period to really come to that realization. Maybe with the Venus retrograde, it all sort of comes to us. And then another good question is, are we living according to our truest philosophies? Sometimes our lives can get off track. That's human nature, I guess. But maybe we've been spending too much money or socializing too much. We have to be careful with Jupiter because it is the planet of excess. And, maybe it's time to focus on our responsibilities. And so with Jupiter in Libra, Libra is about pleasure, but it's also about finding balance and justice and harmony, especially in partnerships. So when something's out of balance, Libra will feel it keenly. So Jupiter's retrograde period in this sign is a good time to figure out which parts of your own life are out of balance so you can focus on living a life you truly believe in. And also, during this period, try not to follow anyone else's philosophies and beliefs. Come to terms with what you want or what you believe in or what your philosophy is. It's good to have guidance, but not follow something blindly. So the Jupiter cycle, as I said before, it is in a sign for a year approximately, and its cycle is about 12 years. So in 12 years' time, we'll be back with Jupiter in Libra. Now, moving on to this particular week's energies, because that was a bit of an overview of this week, but also this month, February, coming up. A lot's going on. But this week, Mercury is very busy. Now, Mercury is busy because it's making a conjunction. Well, actually, yesterday it made a conjunction to Pluto. It's forming a square to Uranus on Tuesday and a square to Jupiter on Thursday. So Jupiter is the planet of communication. Did I say Jupiter? I meant Mercury. Mercury is the planet of communication, and so it's how we think, how we speak, how we communicate. And, of course, most people have heard of Mercury retrograde, which brings doom and gloom. Every time I hear people mention Mercury retrograde, or if something goes wrong or haywire, Mercury retrograde always gets the blame, and sometimes rightly so. So Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo. So anytime there's something going on with Mercury, Gemini and Virgo should definitely pay attention. That's the ruling planet of these two signs. So on Sunday, Mercury formed a conjunction to Pluto, and that's great. That was great energy for the Earth signs because Mercury conjunct Pluto both in Capricorn. So the Earth signs are Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. So this is a time for really diving in deep to something. We're going to take a short break. After the break, I will continue with this week's planets, so stay tuned.
Feed your soul with waves of consciousness on OMTimes Radio. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment, a philanthropic organization. Their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Have you bought into the idea that you have to work hard for your money, that business is hard? I will share some dynamic access consciousness tools to get you out of your own way so you can create a business that actually succeeds. Join me, Simone Millicers, on The Joy of Business at 4 p.m. Mondays Eastern.
Welcome back to the Dog Show. Up next we have Satchmo. Satchmo is a member of the Shelter Pet Group.
That's right, a group known especially for their couch-snuggling, ball-chasing, face-licking, and, of course, companionship. Now, let's see him in action.
Look how he makes eye contact with his person.
That's actually known as the treat stare.
How intuitive, and now he appears to be excitedly turning in circles.
Ah, the happy dance will come in with this group.
But really, the best way to know an amazing shelter pet like Satchmo is to meet one.
Visit theshelterpetproject.org today. Adopt.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Hi there, welcome back to the Astrology Show. I'm your host and astrologer, Kelli Fox, talking about the planets this week and the planets in February. And we have a busy week, a busy month ahead of us. Of course, it's eclipse season, which is always one of the major headlines, according to astrologers. When there's eclipses, it's always a time for intensity. But that always depends on where the eclipses fall within your astrology chart. So this week we have Venus moving into Aries, which is going to be an extra long cycle through June 6th because it turns retrograde. And we have Jupiter moving retrograde as well in Libra, where it will be for a few months. So the next few months is all about relationships. So just before the break, I was talking about this week, focusing in on this week, and Mercury. Mercury is really busy this week. It's forming a conjunction to Pluto on Sunday, which was yesterday, a square to Uranus on Tuesday, and a square to Jupiter on Thursday. So Mercury is very busy. And Mercury is the planet of communication. So there are all different kinds of communicators in this world. We've got the strong, silent types who speak only when they feel it's absolutely necessary. We've got the chatty, witty types who could carry on a conversation with just about anyone, even that strong, silent type. People who put their foot in their mouth on a regular basis, and others who always seem to speak with the utmost grace and tact. And I'm thinking of certain signs in particular. So the way you communicate has a lot to do with the planet Mercury, which is often called the planet of communication. And as I said before the break, it rules your thought processes, your logic or lack thereof, your intellectual ideas, and the way you get those ideas across to the world. And, of course, the Mercury retrograde we've all heard of, that gets the blame for everything, and rightly so. So on Sunday, yesterday, Mercury formed a conjunction to Pluto in Capricorn. So this is great news for the earth signs, and that's Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, because this is all about really diving deep into research or some sort of investigation. This transit brings razor-sharp mental capacities into full utility and sharpens our perceptions and our attention to detail. You know, yesterday I really got through a lot of stuff. I even surprised myself. So this conjunction really helped me clear out my inbox and get ready for the week ahead. So that's what happens when Mercury conjuncts Pluto. I tend to think of this influence as the FBI influence. Can really dig deep and the truth comes out. So it's that type of influence. And I'm just looking at the degree that it was at yesterday, and both occurred at 18 degrees, or both because it's a conjunction, which means next to 18 degrees Capricorn, Mercury conjuncting Pluto. So anybody that has any planet in their chart, astrology chart at around 18 degrees, you might have noticed a difference yesterday or around this time. So as I said, it's the best time possible to research or investigate any subject of interest. We've got laser-like focus. We can get immediately to the heart of the matter and eliminating anything superficial. Many of us will be able to express ourselves with equal clarity, on point and in focus with this influence, as well as the ability to persuade others. It's sort of like selling ice to Eskimos type of thing. But you have to be careful on the flip side about what you're preaching, because we may get offended when someone disagrees with us or challenges our ideas, or vice versa. So just a gentle reminder with this particular aspect is that other people can have different opinions than our own, and so let's not get hot under the collar if we don't all agree. So we need to agree to disagree. Also on Tuesday, Mercury is forming a square to Uranus. So we need to be extra careful when driving or even walking around. Accidents can happen easily under this influence, and sometimes momentary lapses of attention or being in too much of a hurry can lead to unpleasant incidents. And I'm thinking and picturing people walking down the street looking at their phones with this type of influence. And then on Thursday, we have Mercury square Jupiter. Our minds will be stimulated, probably overstimulated. Many of us will have big ideas, and it's wonderful to entertain such grand plans. and we might be really optimistic, but not realistic. It's not a time to be thinking practically, and many of us will be ignoring those pesky details with the Mercury square Jupiter aspect on Thursday. So that's the week's influences, and now for your weekly horoscope. If you're an Aries with Venus and Mars in your sign, your love life goes off the scale. For better or for worse, though, that's the question. Pour your efforts into matching the passion with tenderness in order to avoid the wrong kind of fire. If you're a Taurus, privacy is a hot button issue for you, and you won't take kindly to other people trying to interfere in your love life, even if they mean well. The solution is crystal clear. Keep your business to yourself. Don't talk about your private life. I think that's generally a good rule of thumb. If you're a Gemini, if you're single, a friend could turn into a lover during this passionate vibe. Don't be surprised if you hit a creative block, though, whether at work or in your hobbies. Your imagination is temporarily stifled. If you're a Cancer, you're very preoccupied with your personal image and your social status. As the saying goes, what other people think of you is really none of your business. Be happy in your own skin and simply live up to your own expectations. If you're a Leo, you're on a quest for peace and tolerance. Be the voice of sanity in a heated situation, or stand up for those more vulnerable than yourself. You can make people sit up and take notice, so don't waste your words on unimportant matters. If you're a Virgo, jealousy is potentially a big issue, especially in a relatively new relationship. Try to give your partner the benefit of the doubt. Meanwhile, exert your own independence too. You can be happy together without needing to suffocate one another. If you're a Libra, Venus edges into your love zone, so it's no surprise that love is on the agenda. It's a great week for a first date or indeed a wedding. It will be difficult to concentrate on anything not related to your love life, although I think that sort of goes anyway for you, Libra. If you're a Scorpio, even though you know better, you can't help but be quite superficial sometimes. Try to avoid judging people on their looks or their wealth. Look past the obvious and connect with the other soul looking back at you. And you totally like the depth, Scorpio, so that shouldn't be too hard for you. If you're a Sagittarius, you've worked hard since the new year began, so you deserve a little mini break now. Spend as much time as possible on your hobbies and make a point of having fun. Work and responsibilities can wait a little while at least. If you're a Capricorn, tidying up the family home is essential, as Venus in your family zone won't stand for untidiness, mess, or chaos. If nobody will help out, let them be. Doing it yourself means you'll get it just how you want it. That sounds like good advice, right? If you're an Aquarian, there's a real charm to your words now, but use it wisely. If you're not careful, you could come across as insincere or smarmy. In a relationship, be sure to speak from the heart and not just say what you think your lover wants to hear. And finally, if you're a sweet Pisces, did you win the lottery? If not, it's probably best to rein in the spending a little. Venus in your money zone gives you an eye for luxury, but unfortunately not a budget to match. Learn to appreciate the things which money can't buy. And there you have it, the weekly horoscopes. And just to recap, this week, we have Venus in Aries, and that's love planet Venus, moving into Aries, Aries, the first sign of the zodiac. And this is going to be an extra long cycle because Venus will be turning retrograde, and it doesn't do it very often. It turns retrograde on March 4th and then finally direct on the 15th. It will continue its cycle through Aries and Pisces through June 6th. That's a very long period for love planet Venus to be in one sign and touching another. So the combination of Venus in Aries retrograde with Jupiter in Libra retrograde, this is all about relationships. This is a time to strengthen your relationship, or if you're in a relationship and it's not working out as you want, perhaps it's time to move on. And this is more so if you're a fixed sign, because February is the month of eclipses. February 10th, we have a lunar eclipse in Leo. So if you're a fixed sign, and that's Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, it's a time of transformation. And on that note, thanks for tuning in to the Astrology Show. Have a great week, and tune in next week for next week's show to find out about the lunar eclipse in Leo.